Now, for more on Ukraine's move towards the West, I'm joined by Andy Hunder. He's the director of the Ukrainian Institute in London. Andy, thanks very much for joining us on the show. Now, Ukraine gets to realize its association with the EU. But just how significant is this? What does the association agreement actually mean for Kiev?
Well, the symbolism of today's event is massive. It's exactly 4 months to the day that the protests were sparked off in Kiev. And the spark it was actually the fact that former President Yanukovych moved away from signing this agreement with the EU. What is important to understand really, as was said today, it's about the values of human dignity, freedom of speech, rule of law. And this is a real step in a direction for a future of Ukraine, which will be based on that rule of law and standing up against the corruption that has ruled the country for so many years.
All right.
President Putin threatened to break.
On the other side, though, then, you know, you've set out the freedom of speech, the freedom in Ukraine. But what about the other side? What does the EU get out of this agreement?
Well, the EU, in effect, what it gets, you know, Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe. And it gets on its borders, next to it, a country whose values are based on exactly that. I think what the main focus here is the values. And it's much better that a country has the values of freedom of speech, rule of law, as opposed to be based on a tyranny run by a dictator. So I think it's very, very important that for the EU, especially what has happened today. So I think this is a win-win, both for EU member states and for Ukrainians also, who, you know, there are over 100 people that gave their lives.
Ideologically, it sounds good, but there's also a financial tie here, isn't there? Like, particularly now, Moscow is demanding that Ukraine pay back $11 billion on a gas agreement, and for that gas agreement to be scrapped. Now, this is something the EU will have to help shoulder at this particular stage. Is the EU prepared for the financial impact of being associated with Kiev?
I think in terms of the rhetoric that we're hearing from Moscow, in terms of the financial demands, I think that this will be on both sides, because I think Kiev hasn't spoken yet in terms of its financial demands towards Moscow, because there are many assets in Ukraine, Russian assets, that will have liabilities for Moscow also. So I think that that'll be balanced out. In terms of you know, any aid coming in, these will be loans which Ukrainians will pay back over the years. This is the new government in place. It's a pro-reform government, a government that will focus very much on an anti-corruption platform. The next 2 years will be difficult for Ukrainians. As many countries have gone through reforms, they understand that this will be difficult. Gas prices will go up, generally, yes. But in the mid to long term, this is a massive step forward.
Andy, great getting your insight. Thank you so much. Andy Hunder there, director of the Ukrainian Institute, speaking to us from London.